Hi, my name is Perry Cooper and I'm a 3D and motion graphics designer working in the advertising industry and posting animations regularly to Instagram. In this series I'm going to show you how to create this fun looping factory scene from start to finish using Cinema 4D R20, OctaneRender 2020 and After Effects for post. In this video we'll start with modelling the truck, controlling the tipping action using inverse kinematics and some simple espresso to rotate the wheels when moving the truck back and forth. Let's get started. Okay, let's just start with a cube. Look at the side, just going to shrink it down a little bit. I'm going to make this editable. And then I'm going to, about a third of the way up, make a slice. Pick these two top points, bring those in. Lock in a side view. Just make another cube. And I want to shrink that down. I'm just going to kind of make the windows, and these are going to cut all the way through. Make this editable. And I like using the volume builder because I think we get the kind of a cool molded, kind of almost like wooden toy style. Get the volume builder and mesher. Those in together. Then we'll cut one out from the other. Subtract that. Let's just call this side windows. And we'll call this cab. And then we want to do the front window. So let's just get another cube. Just shrink this down. Let's look at the front. Want to make sure it all marries up. Then we just want to make this smaller. Add that in. We'll just call this front window. And if we go into the volume builder, we can subtract that. Now you can up the voxel size or lower the voxel size to get this cleaner, and we can add in some smoothing. I want to kind of put a wheel arch in here, so create a rectangle, add rounding to it, and then the height, let's make that like 100. You know, the wheel for the truck, you know, it's going to be in this kind of area, so it's kind of below the cab, and then we can extrude this, and then we can chop this out right in this direction. So we'll call this wheel arch, and then we'll subtract that. I think what I might do is grab that front window section. I'm going to kind of reuse it, scale it, so it's kind of, we'll put a little bit of a bumper on the front of the truck and make sure that's underneath the smooth layer. So I might bring it up here. Let's bring in a cylinder, put this in +Z, make this smaller, look from the front, and let's put one here. Let's put this in -60, and these don't need to be so huge, so let's just make this 20. So let's put those in, and we'll rename these actually headlights. Just keep track of everything. Okay, and what we want to do is subtract both of those, just so we've got like a little indentation, and then we can copy and duplicate those, add some fillet to them. And maybe we'll make that fillet smaller, like 5. And then we'll just kind of recess those in. So in the side view, let's create another cube. And let's actually group these. So we're going to call this cab. And this, we're going to change some sizes. So I want to make this maybe like 525. And then maybe 50 by 40. And then this is going to be the base, so let's kind of have it sit about here. So let's bring in a tube, and I want to get that through X, change this to like 25 by 50 and say like 35, and just move this roughly into position. We're going to put that into a volume builder and mesher. I want to make sure that they are centered to that outer ring. Bring in a MoGraph cloner, and then cube. We're going to do the ridges around the edge. So for these, and what I want to do is kind of have those sticking out. So let's make this radial, and then change the, actually I'll keep that plain, we'll just rotate it. We can probably set it PSR there and rotate it so we know that that is totally centered. I'll take it out of here for the moment so it doesn't slow it down. So I want to kind of have like the ridges, so when the tires are moving we can see what's going on. So I think I might make these a bit deeper, so maybe we'll change this to 20. And I'll kind of bring these to one side, probably up the count, maybe the radius, so they're just sticking in. And then I want to subtract those. You see we get that kind of tire marking. I will add some smoothing on. Yeah, so we've kind of got those ridges in there. You can adjust that smoothing. We could probably change the voxel distance. We can also change the strength. So maybe we'll make this here about 75. We'll call this ridges. And then I'm going to copy that and offset it to here. And then just rotate it so it's kind of in between every other ridge. And then we want to make sure that that is subtracted as well. And then that is kind of our quick tire done. So with that done, we just want to do the center of the tire. So maybe let's get another cube. Let's copy this one. And I'm going to shrink that down on the outer and the inner. And this one I don't need to be in a volume builder. I'm just going to add a fillet on there. Maybe change the radius to something like 5. Let's get a capsule, a cloner, this on, make this radial again, or we can make small. Make sure this is PSR'd, make sure it's centered. We'll probably change the plane, and then I'm going to change the radius. I want to make these capsules longer, so make these like 45, bring down the radius. These I'm going to make like 4. Group all these together, we'll call that wheel. And then what we can do is make an instance of that with that selected, move this along. So now we've got our 2 front wheels. Let's bring in a cylinder. Let's set this through X, change the scale, bring this down. And I think I'll put some rounding on the end with these fillet caps. Let's grab this whole group that together, and let's call that like front axle. Make an instance of that, make another copy, move that right to the back. Let's just put some cuts in for where we want these connection points to be. I want actually the middle axle closer to be kind of close down there, because we're going to have those close together. We're going to put in some kind of structural work here so that the container on the back is going to rotate upwards. A couple of slices here, and then maybe we'll just do one right at the front here. And we'll just grab these boxes and extrude those out. I've just skipped ahead a few minutes here where I have just put that base section into a volume builder and mesher to make it all nice and rounded. Then I took the axle rods that we created and used them just to make some holes so the wheels would sit in. Let's grab another cube, and we want to extend this out, move this up. So this is going to be sitting on top. Okay, and now what I want to do is, like we did with the cab, I'm going to make one initial slice here, and I'm just going to grab these 2 edges, just bring those in. I might actually bring these 2 out a little bit more, bend that over the edge. So what I'm going to do is, actually the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the size. I'm going to make this so it's kind of in line with the truck, so at least we can see the top of the truck there. And I might also just make this a little bit thinner. I grab the edge tool, I'm going to just bring this down. So I kind of prefer this kind of shape. I'm going to grab this back section, go to the inner extrude tool. If I extrude at the moment, you see it kind of cuts in on all sides. So what we'll need to do is change this angle. I'll just up it. The offset I'm going to change to something 22. What I'm going to do is delete this top section and grab these 2, and I'm just going to extrude these out. Extrude it a bit. I'll delete the top. Those 2 selected. I'm going to push these all the way back, and then I want it obviously to join up. So grab these and maybe do stitch. That's the stitch and sew tool. Make sure they're definitely aligned by selecting all 3, and then that Z size I can change to 0, and they're all completely straight. They're all on the same axis now. Okay, so that's that done. So we're going to want to add a door on the back. So to do that, we could let's just change this to container. I'm going to duplicate this. See, we've got these polygons here selected. I'm going to go select, invert, delete everything else. So now we've just got these polygons. I can bring these all the way to the back. Then we can extrude those out. We'll want create caps on. Keeps a cap on the back. And then now we've got a door. Okay, so let's get a capsule. And I just want to kind of a few kind of like ribs down the side of the truck. Add that into a cloner. Maybe we'll make the Y like 30, the difference. I'll change this down to something like 8. We'll call that detail. And then let's duplicate that. Move this across. So we can get a volume builder and mesher. Let's put all of our parts in there. And let's take the voxel size down to 2. And we'll add a smoothing, maybe just of 1. So just got some detail on the side. Now I just want to kind of do the same to this back door. And then the door, again, get a volume builder and mesher. Now, if things start chugging for you, then you can start kind of bringing down the polygon amount. So I'll show you that in a second. So I'm just going to put my door in here. Something to rotate our door on. So I'm just going to change this through X, bring this to the back, pretend that this is kind of locked in. So that will kind of be our basis for rotating. So we obviously want to make sure this all rotates correctly. So let's take these out actually. And then this volume builder mesher, I'm going to make sure they're PSR'd to that, the axis center of the cylinder. And we can add all that back in. All the smoothings at the top. Make that cylinder a little bit smaller. And then I think I will grab that detail that we've got on the edging of the container and put that at the back. So let's rotate that through 90. And we'll make these like 100 in width. Bring this back. I kind of have it here. So we've got a little bit of detail on the back there. Matches those sides. Add that in underneath the smoothing. Yeah, I think I might actually make it stick out a little bit more on the edges. So what was this one here? Our container, our door. Well, that's our base. So let's call this central column. That's front axle, middle axle, back axle, or rear, I guess. Okay, let's set those all together. Now we're going to want this truck to lift. So let's group these together, the door and the container. And we'll call this container. And we're going to want this to kind of, tip up. So it's going to pour all of the, stuff in the factory, like out the back. So we're going to need to set it up for that. So the first thing we're going to do is need to have a point in which it rotates. So let's select the container. And I'm going to need to put some cuts in here. So let's, I want it to be in between the wheel and this central column. I'm just going to eyeball it. You could do actual percentages. I'm gonna be like here. And then I'm going to select these two. extrude them out. And you could turn off your volume builder just while you're doing this. Or I might actually just split both of these, scale them in, so it's kind of touching. I'm going to use this as a rotation point. Just for the look of it, I might actually or edge, move it. I might keep it angled like that. Shape. See what that looks. Yeah, so it looks like that. And it's probably going to rotate around this kind of area. Or we might have to extend this back out a little bit. Now, it's also, we're going to need to kind of add in this kind of mechanism that lifts this. So let's, with our container selected, we need to go into an actual side view. First, I need to pick the point at which I want this to lift. So I'm going to hide my back axle a second. Idea, maybe that is going to be the central point or the rotate point, our back container. I'll just give that a go. We'll see what it looks like. Yeah, that kind of looks right. Now, what I want to do is have how this is going to connect. This container is going to connect to the bottom. So I'm going to need to have something sticking out that is that connection point. So container selected. Let's add in here a couple of cuts. So I'm going to on here, here. And then what I'm going to do is grab these polygons, extrude those out. And then this is going to obviously need to sit in an indent that's in our central column at the base. So for the moment, let's just turn these back on and let's go to our central column. I'm going to need to cut that out. So let's use the knife tool. Okay. And I'm just going to hide container. I want this to extrude inwards, so I'm just going to turn these off a second. Okay, I'm going to extrude that down. That up, but we can fix it. I'm going to use the bridge tool to stick these together. Okay. I don't obviously need to worry about the joins, polygon joins, because we're putting this in a volume builder. Now, the other thing I want to do is have this object that kind of lifts up the back. It needs to slide along something. So we need to kind of cut a hole out the middle here. So I think I'm going to select both sides here. Extrude these in. Something like that. Delete those. Just going to link these up. I mean, you could do this with using the volume builder. You could just an object through the middle and cut it out. Feed. I'm quickly adding that in. Okay, so our container will kind of sit in that gap, yeah, and we want this kind of connection to be connected to it, and for the whole thing to push up and down. We can turn our back axle back on. We want our container to rotate. Now, to be able to easily animate this rotating as well as this object we're going to put in here sliding, we're going to kind of need to set this up like a simple IK chain. So I need to imagine that this is the shoulder, this is the elbow, and this is the hand if you're imagining an IK chain. Let's add in a cylinder. And this is partly for the look of it and partly so we can kind of work out what exactly is going on. We want like a cylinder like this. And then we're going to want another cylinder. I'm going to call this one actually elbow. just to keep the arm kind of a metaphor going. We'll call this one wrist. I'm going to add on some caps actually. Probably make the elbow one the same. So let's say this is, let's call this 7. I might make that wider. We'll just call this one 7 as well. And then I'm going to get a rectangle, add on some rounding, and then for height, I'm going to make that like 14. You see, I'm going to want these to kind of connect. And do it by eye, and then set up our IK so it moves everything. Now let's just change this width. About 250. I want to rotate this. So these are kind of both reasonably centered. Make this width less. Cool. And then we want to extrude that. Angled view, so you can see. Like, not right. Yeah, something like that. And we'll add some caps, add some fillet caps on. We'll add constrain. Maybe we'll make the steps like 10 and 1, 10, 1. A little bit of smoothing, maybe 2. Yeah. Then what I'll do is I'll just, that extrude, I'll just set it underneath the rectangle, PSR it. Then it means you've got the right axis. You see that's kind of sitting in the right point. I want this to be about, probably should be wider than these. So let's maybe make this like 16, 18. Maybe make this a little bit wider. And that radius of the rounding, I'm going to put a large number in. It'll just do whatever's at current maximum. Okay, so I think that looks better. Right. So now it's about how we kind of structure these up. So we're going to need to put one on the other side. So let's call this arm. Keep the metaphor going. We'll extend this over here. Again, we want that thing flush. In our wrist, we can change the size of that, just sticking out. And our elbow, change the size of that so it's just sticking out. So kind of got this structure now. And now we want to actually get it to work. So we want to be able to push this. As we push this, it pushes this up and tips the back of the truck. Okay, so before we do that, I think I just want to make these volume builder parts of the container and the door editable so we can actually work with them, and we can stack them up because we need to get basically this IK chain working. So what I will do is if I just turn all of these on, then we go to display garage shading with lines, you can see we've got quite a dense mesh. But what we can do is just change the adaptive mode here to something like 0.5. This is in the volume mesher. And then I'm going to change that to 0.5 here. And I think I'll probably do the same for like the cab. 0.5. And then I'll probably do it for the wheels as well. So we'll just make sure that we're just reducing the polygon amount on everything. So 0.5. It just kind of makes it a little bit less dense for us. Can probably do it on that central column as well, so 0.5. Okay, so that's really sort of like reduced our polygon count. What I'll do is save this as truck unbroken. So this just means that you know, if I make a mistake, I can always go back to the unbroken version or the editable version, basically. So let's just save this as truck again. So we're back in the same file. And now we can make these editable. So let's just make our central column editable. Our tire, I'm going to make editable. Our door and our container. And our cab. Okay, so we're going to have an easier file to work with. Now let's look at the structure of our object. So let's go into Garage Shading. And I'm going to hide that back axle. So, you know, setting this up, got our container. Now, actually, I've made a slight mistake here. If I go in the side view, I want the container rather than the kind of group that it's in to be here. I need the access point there. I need the actual container access point to be there. So I'm just going to kind of move this roughly kind of there. So that's going to be our access point. And that's going to rotate. Okay, so we want our container and our door. We want our door within our container, so they rotate together. And then we're going to want the elbow to be underneath the container also. So that's the next part in the chain. And then we want our arms to be the next down the line. But what we want to do is, if we were doing this as like building an IK, we want to make sure that the arm rotation point is at the elbow, not right in the center. So what we'll do is make both of these arms editable. I might actually delete one, and we'll edit one and then duplicate it again. Let's select all these parts of the arm, and we'll go to objects, and we'll go connect objects and delete. So now we've just created one object. Now what I want to do is then move this axis point so it's kind of in the center here, so it kind of makes sense. Okay, so it kind of center of this lines up with that circle. Not super perfect. Probably, I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be good enough. We just want to make sure it works. Always adjust. So that's that there. So the arm goes underneath the elbow. Then we obviously want another arm is underneath the elbow. And let's position that one. So we want that one to be over. That one to be over here. Go into an angled view so we can see it. Okay. Yeah. And then underneath the arm, we want the wrist. The wrist is at the end of the chain. So what we should be able to do, let's save this. Let's click the first part of the chain, which is container. Then we want to hold down Control and select the wrist, the last part of our chain. And we go to Character, Commands, Create IK Chain. That's given us this wrist goal. And if I move this, it's almost working. Got that position. I think it's just that other second arm that's not working. So let's add that under there. Let's see if that works. Our wrist goal. That's it. So now we've got this actually functioning. So what I'm going to do is to make this easier to see, our wrist goal, if we change this to something like a hexagon and then change the radius to like 100, then we can quite easily see it on screen. What I'm also going to do is group this object, and then I'm going to call this, let's call it flatbed 0. Okay, so the reason I've done that is that if I like move all this around and down the line I animate it and I mess it up, I need to get it back to that point. Now if I did it before, it would if I could do PSR, it would PSR to the actual 0 position in the world. But now if I press PSR, it's PSRs to that group that we created, which was in the same spot. So then that's what we can animate down the line. We can add our back axle back in. Let's group all of these objects together. Group those. We'll call this truck. Now, we want the tyres to move. Now, if we move forwards and backwards, you see they do not move at all. Now, there's a simple trick, or quick way of getting around this. Now, we're going to have a few trucks in here, so I'm just going to put this truck 1. If I look at coordinates, now this truck is going to be the truck that sits at the front and is just going to move through the scene this way. So what I'd like to do is say on Z position, the wheels move. So I'm going to click on Z, go to expressions, set driver. I'm going to go into my truck, into the front axle that we've got. So if I select P on front axle, I'm going to go to expressions, then set driven relative. Now, when I move the truck, see the wheels are moving. Now, they're not necessarily moving in the right direction, but we can amend that. What we could probably also do is change this so it's not on the front axle, but probably on the actual wheels themselves. So let's just change that and just see. There we go. Let's go in here to, it's created an espresso basically. And then you see we've got this output 0, lower and upper. Now I'm just going to change this to be minus 360 to reverse this. And this is a duplicate, so I've got to do the same in here as well. Minus 360. Navigate the truck, move it forwards and backwards. Now you notice, it is pretty quick. So I'm just going to select this. Maybe we'll just make it minus 180. Just want it to look visually right. That's looking a lot better, I think. Maybe I'll make it even less than that. Let's try minus 90 and just see what that looks like. Actually, that's better. So let's go to the range mapper. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. In the next video, we'll build and rig the conveyor belt and containers. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and stay tuned for new videos.